Mike Fuller? Mike still here? Did he take off? Maybe he's just here to listen. Wanda Brown. Wanda, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for coming.
Yep.
We like the August recess because we get to see more of you.
Yes, I like to be.
Thank you for coming. A couple of things. First of all, I want to congratulate the Congress for accomplishing way more than the media gives you credit for, especially healthcare reform. My mother and dad are 95. They live on their Social Security of about $26,000 a year. They'll get $500 back this year to help close that donut hole in the Medicare drug program. So on their behalf, I thank you. I told them I would tell you that today. I appreciate it. The students are also happy about the health care coverage that will extend as they begin to get their careers going. So we're really happy about that. As you know, I think the wars that the United States has been involved in are a disaster economically. And I respectfully disagree with your positions on those wars. As you know, we've talked about that many times.
Yes, we have.
I'm very, very concerned about how we can justify spending that kind of money. There is a military contractor in every congressional district in the United States. That was a very calculated decision on the parts of
Sure
those
is.
for-profit companies so that they could be rich and make sure that you would keep voting for weapons and you and your colleagues. So I really am, I think it's a conundrum how we can talk about rescuing the economy and pouring money into wars which produce nothing. The purpose of a weapon is to destroy itself.
Yeah.
And it doesn't create jobs.
Yeah.
So how
Right.
are we to fix this?
Wanda, you're right. Wanda was worried about. Wanda's worried about the wartime spending, the impact it's having economically, and clearly it is. You know, and one of the concerns I have is whether or not we're doing a better job of nation building in places like Iraq and Afghanistan as opposed to the United States of America. And we got to get back to nation building here again. We've got bridges right across the river falling down on us. This is crazy. And we've got to do it. And that's why I've been working and leading the effort to develop a national manufacturing strategy for our country so that we're a nation that builds things, constructs things, grows things again. And that's fundamental to the strength of any country and creating good paying jobs at the same time. And there are a variety of things, multifaceted, that we can be doing to support manufacturing again in this nation. But just remember, President Obama, he took an Iraq situation, 150,000 troops in it, and by the end of this summer, we're going to be down to 50,000 troops. Major downsizing. And by the end of next summer, no more combat troops in Iraq. There'll be a civilian presence there and an ancillary role to help with guidance, but no more combat troops in Iraq. And he's looking, again, for where the reasonable downsizing in Afghanistan is going to occur within this next year, too. He set some pretty hard goals in that fashion, working with, General Petraeus now, who's over in Afghanistan. So they know what's being asked of them. But it's not just us. It's an international effort in Afghanistan right now, too. And that country's going to need help from multiple countries in order to at least just get them on some minimal basis of competency in running that country.
I love President Obama. I just don't want Afghanistan to be his Vietnam.
We've got about 5 more minutes. We could try to get to as many people in that, but again, we've got your sheets here, and we'll try to follow up with you. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. David Matthews? David here? Hi, David. Thanks for joining us.
Mine's about the stimulus package.
Yep.
And I thought the stimulus package did a great job in getting us out of a recession, but it's not done as well in getting us to a robust growth situation. If we look at China, China spent roughly twice as much on its stimulus package as a percent of GDP, and they got back to their full growth potential inside a year. I think we need a second stimulus package, and I'd appreciate the comments on that.
I tell you, right now, a large second stimulus package just isn't in the books. I mean, 60 votes, almost impossible to come. But there are certain things that we can move, and we have been out of the House. One is small business relief, making sure that small businesses are getting tax relief. Again, being the locomotive that they are, that's going to be important. Infrastructure. We've got a transportation reauthorization bill that's coming up. Lord knows, we've got infrastructure projects that can create jobs. Also long-term investment. You need a strong infrastructure system to maintain a growing economy. And we're falling behind in that regard. But the thing that most people don't realize, with the first American Recovery Act, 40% of that was in the form of tax relief. Tax relief that 97% of families received in this country, tax relief targeting small businesses in order to help them during this difficult time. So a large part of that was in the form of tax relief that we're hoping to be able to continue. And that's what that small business tax relief bill is, pending in the Senate this week. The other thing that we're trying to create in that small business bill is a $30 billion small business lending program that would go back to local lenders. They can participate if they choose. It's not mandatory, it's voluntary. But if they take some of that capital, the more they loan to small businesses, that 5% rate they'll be charged will come down to as low as 1%. So the incentive is for them to get that money out into small businesses and lending. And if there was one huge shortfall of the TARP program, and it's something that I was calling the Bush administration to do, was to put in there a clause that would require these big banks to lend to small businesses. They didn't want to do it. And guess what? They didn't do it. And that's why the credit markets are so tight for small businesses today. I still think that was a serious shortfall when it came to that troubled asset relief program that passed. Thank you. Good to hear from you. Jamie Dostrom or James Dostrom? James?
Yes, I was just wondering how much did your salary go up in the last couple of years?
Well, it hasn't. You know, we haven't even taken a cost of living adjustment. I don't take cost of living adjustments, for the record, and they haven't gone up last year, this year. They're not going to go up next year either. So it's been flat line.
Yours hasn't gone up the last year.
No. No, there has been no COLA increase for members of Congress. Last year, this year, next year, there won't. It's already written into law. I know there's something going on around the internet claiming that there was some pay increase or some COLA increase for us. I can categorically refute that. It didn't happen. And I noticed that, listen, the internet, we were just talking about broadband connectivity. You know, the internet's a powerful medium, and it's a great tool, and these students especially, you know, love being able to work on it. But we need to remind ourselves that there's a lot of bad information on the internet from time to time, too, and being more discerning and being more discriminating as far as the information on the internet is one of the great challenges that we have as a democracy, because it's easy to post something or to put something on a blog and claim that it's true, but a lot of times it isn't. And being able to tell the difference is getting more and more difficult all the time. Denny Moline? Is Denny still here? How much time?
Yes.
Hey, Denny.
Regarding a comment and a question, regarding the Wall Street reform, you just said a couple of times, you just mentioned a little bit ago, that now this will never happen again because now you have the tools to prevent, to not have to bail out these companies. And I submit that we had the tools all along. It was called bankruptcy, but we chose not to do it. So I'm not sure what we gained at this point. But the bigger question is, if we have all of that in place, and Congress has a very low approval rating right now, and you've got 2 senior members up on ethics charges, where do we get the confidence that this is going to prevent this from ever happening again?
Yeah. Denny, the short answer is it's only as good as the people in charge of conducting oversight. And for whatever reason, in recent years, the referees were taken off the field. They were taken off the field. I'm a kid who grew up in western Wisconsin. I loved to play sports. But I knew that part of the game was having referees there enforcing the rules. Now, sometimes you didn't agree with what the ref called, but they were an essential part of the game. But for whatever reason, the refs were taken off the field when it came to this market economy of ours. And when that happens, you end up with Wall Street banks acting like casinos rather than lending to businesses to grow the economy. You end up with health insurance companies going out of their way to figure out a way to drop coverage of people when they get sick or injured. And you end up with big oil companies cutting corners and ending up with the greatest ecological disaster in our nation's history down in the Gulf of Mexico because they went cheap and they cut safety standards that BP did recently. And that's because oversight didn't do the oversight that was important.
But it's my understanding that the BP oil well that you're citing passed a safety inspection.
No.
So were the referees taken off, or were they not doing the job?
I did a hearing, and I was able to cross-examine Hayward from BP and also the executive from Transocean. And it was very clear that They were being charged $533,000 a day to rent that Transocean platform, and they were 43 days behind schedule. And so all the pressure was for them to go cheap on the casings and to cut safety procedures, and that they readily admit today. And that's why you had that big blowout that occurred. And where was MMS? Where were the oversight people? They weren't doing their job. And that's why we just passed legislation this week in order to reform that, reform the ethics process so we can end this revolving door of industry officials going to the oversight agencies and then guarding the chicken coop. And that's been the problem that we've had for many long. We've got time for one more. Scott Filipiak. Is Scott still here?
Yes.
Hi, Scott. Thanks for coming.
My question is, where do you get your constitutional authority to force socialized medicine on us by the health care bill? Article 1, Section 8 lists 18 things that the federal government is allowed to do, nothing else. So I don't see it in there, and I'm wondering why you do that. I'm just so sick and tired of all the spending and all the regulation. This health care bill is going to be a disaster. It's going to be a job killer. It's just going to be
You know, Scott, I appreciate your thoughts, and obviously this is something that's going to get resolved in the very near future. I think with the courts looking at it and seeing whether or not this just was constitutional or whether we stepped outside, and that's why we've got a third branch, the courts, to enforce this, to look at the Constitution, to make sure that we're complying with the Constitution. And so hopefully they'll be able to do that as quickly as possible. But again, you know, this wasn't a new concept that was pulled out of the air. I mean, this idea of an individual mandate for health insurance came from the Heritage Foundation. It was something that Senator Bob Dole campaigned on, that other Republicans were calling for years and years and years. And so this wasn't something that suddenly materialized.
free market in the medical system. The costs are never going to go down. And you're going to have rationing. You're going to have people waiting for care, just like in Britain and Sweden. They're waiting. They're dying before they can get in Canada. Same thing.
Well, I hope that's not what it leads to. But thank you all very much. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. Thank you for being.